attention. Pay attention.
You changed his...
You asked me questions.
Yes.
There you go. And now you get it.
Right. Okay, so this is something my entire life. People don't listen to my advice because I've continued to give advice for my 25 years of existence to people, and they don't apply it, right? And they are not better off from my advice. So I would say in the past year, maybe two, I've kind of recognized the fact that they do need to find out for themselves, right? And there is merit in suffering, and I would say letting someone suffer, or letting someone. But at what point do you step in and say something? I know it's super.
No, Jack. So here's like once again, right? And you read a lot, and you learn a lot, and you've applied it to your own life. You know how to help other people. You're amazing. You're like, this is awesome. You know what I mean?
So I see someone that's overweight, and I want to help them lose weight.
If you really want to fix this issue,
yes.
The key thing that you have to understand is it's being driven by this. It's not actually about the other person. It is about the other person. There's genuine love in there.
It's satisfying my own selfish desire, yes.
Right, so then, and I even think the word selfish desire, I think, is a mental construction. I don't think that's, in a sense, what it is. I think you've observed something within yourself, and then you've, read a bunch of books, and you've said, this is what's going on. That's a piece of what's going on.
This is karmic debt, baby. Interesting. Okay.
Where does that come? Because that ain't ego, bro.
I would say I do. It's part of my personality to always strive for fairness. So this is where I agree. I do think that they're a little bit misaligned. Yes.
So here's my point. I know that y'all aren't going to get this, right? But this is a conversation where my goal here is a little bit different, which is I'm going to plant a seed that ain't going to make sense. Okay. But the majority of it doesn't. But I don't think that's because it's scientifically incorrect. I think that the science is way too slow because they've been doing this stuff for thousands of years. So they have thousands of years of development without scientific validation. Are influenced before you're ever born. Right? So genetics is actually a huge scientific support point for the theory of karma because they said this for thousands of years. And then we discovered genetics and then we moved it out of the theory of karma. We said this is a whole new thing, but now it's duh, right? Genetics is common sense. It wasn't common sense 4,000 years ago. So karma is essentially that actions have consequences. That's all it is. And then the thing is, the yogis, they sort of figured out, okay, where does this end? Where does the karmic chain end? And they figured out that cause and effect is a fundamental principle of the universe. And even the time at which you're born, the fact that you're born in this year has a cause, right? And that everything in this world is caused by something else. It is an insight into that is when karma becomes kind of mystical. And I may have lost people there, but it's harder to understand. Do y'all get what I'm saying?
Yes.
Right, so even the fact that y'all lived together for 4.5 years has causes. Dated another theory of karma, that actions have consequences on a psychological level, which was something that 200 years ago, or even 100 years ago, scientists would have said is completely ludicrous. That explains the power of what you feel.
I agree. Yeah, I would agree with that.
So when you say in this life, do you mean a past?
This is what I feel confident about from a clinical perspective. If you're curious about exploring the rest of it, I'm happy to teach you, but just understand that there's no scientific evidence behind what I'm going to say next, okay? So I've had a couple of patients that have had lifelong mental disorders. And the weird thing is that I had this one patient, and she's amazing, has taught me so much. And then so she's had anxiety her whole life. And so I'm teaching a class somewhere, and someone comes up to me after the class and they're like, hey, I really loved what you taught us. He's professionally successful, has kids, is happily married, everything's great, going great. So after a while, so she's curious about this sort of spiritual stuff, and we're doing some level of psychotherapy. Therapist, you can do that. She's I haven't even told any of my other therapists and stuff, and I was oh, okay. Right, but not really. I was just yeah, tell me, because we were in a particular space in therapy where it's not exciting or anything. And then so she starts telling me about these memories that she has. And I ask her, so there's some kind of work that you can do that's called samskaric work. So these are the samskars are the karmas of the past that sort of are present in your current life, and you can build them in this life too. We'll talk about that in a second. But so she basically starts telling me about these very vivid memories that she never had. And so what I did is I kind of treated it even the fact that she never had it, and her specific experience was really harrowing. And she's I asked her when you feel anxious, what is the image that comes to your mind? And she says, I'm underneath the floorboards, and I know that if I make a single noise, the booted feet on top will know that I'm there, and I know it's all me. And every day when I feel anxiety, this is what it is. It's this thing. And so this has never happened to her, right? So there's like no evidence that she's actually been in this situation. So I talked to her a little bit about it. I'm kind of shocked by this. And so then I tell her, like, okay, here's my take on this. So if we accept the theory of karma, we would say that this is some scar from a past life, which is present in this life. There's other scientific explanations. Maybe you watched a movie when you were 3 years old, and the movie was really scary, and it traumatized you some way. It doesn't have to be something mystical from a past life, right? There's all kinds of different explanations here. At the same time, what do you feel about, like, psychotherapizing that trauma, right? Like, what if we work with whatever that emotional, mental energy is? And this is what I think is, like, unsafe territory in terms of science, is just sort of saying, like, okay, once something exists in the mind, like, who knows where it came from, but you can metabolize that thing, you can heal that trauma. We do that, and she gets way better. So now I come out of that experience, and I start to wonder a little bit about, what do I need to believe in this, right? Does this mean that karma is real? No, actually, we have no evidence that karma is real. But we have one really interesting clinical hypothesis. And that clinical hypothesis turned into a question that I started asking patients, which is, hey, do you have any traumatic experiences that never happened? Do you want to talk about those? And oh my God, the number of people that will talk about this stuff, if you like, they're like, yeah, like this is like crazy, but I have these impressions, I have these memories. You know, people think that this is all like, some people think these are repressed memories. But it's been really interesting therapeutically. And there's actually some some very low quality evidence, if I really be fair about it, that, you know, this, I'm not the only one. There have been multiple psychotherapists and psychiatrists that have sort of made this discovery and have worked with, like, memories that don't exist. Now, that's what we know, is that the memory doesn't exist, or that the event did not happen. But there's a big difference, and this is where I kind of take issue with a lot of people who are, like, into Eastern mysticism, because they're not scientists. So they'll say, see, this memory doesn't exist, therefore it must have come from a past life. That's an extrapolation I don't think you can make. But, going back to you, was that too tangential of an answer?
No, this is great.
So going back to you, just my take on this stuff, right? So I know what narcissism looks like. I know what altruistic personality disorder looks like. So altruistic personality disorder is something when people feel super depressed unless they're helping someone else. It's a part of their personality that my value as a person depends on whether I'm helping other people or not. I know what all this stuff looks like. I don't get that vibe from it. So I think what's going on with you is something deeper, is what I would call it. So whether you want to call it karmic or what, in my experience, I think the best words to describe it are karmic debt. And I use that term, I'm giving you something that I know you're going to reject, because what are you going to do after this podcast?
It left, I would say, as an unfilled cup, right?
Absolutely. So you can't find the answers outside. Where are you going to look for them, bro?
Inside, sure.
There you go.
Okay.
Got it. So for these past life experiences, whatever that might be, why do people tend to have the same recurring fears? Let's say whether that be heights, spiders, darkness, certain things are all pretty common. Is that just an evolutionary thing?
A kangaroo. I got bit by a kangaroo when I was in Australia. Okay, so it's a kind of weird phobia, right? So if you sort of think about it, we all know this, like, scientific fact that you can rest as much scientific evidence as you want, that people learn to fear things. If we look at the neuroscience of fear development, when I have an aversive stimulus or a painful stimulus, I will learn to fear it. So we all fear hot pans, right? We don't touch hot pans because we know that it burns us. If I take a hot pan, we don't think about it as I fear hot pans because you're dealing with it in a way that doesn't evoke fear. But if I walk in with a hot pan and I push it towards you, your response will 100% be fear, right? So we actually have overwhelming evidence that phobias come from traumas, right? We have some evidence that some phobias come from some kind of genetic impression. Which, by the way, what is that? Oh, it's a memory from a past life. Interesting, right? Because that's what a genetic impression of an inborn phobia is. So y'all get that? It's like we have genetic memory, which is literally memories from a past life. So then if we sort of say if phobias come from psychological traumas, we know that we can track those back. So we can track back, let's say, 50% of phobias to psychological traumas. Completely scientifically plausible. Where did 50% come from? So one of two things. One is they come from somewhere else.
Well, teka lang, where's mommy?
Wala na nga, nauna na sa SM.
Anong gagawin niya sa SM?
Nakikipag-meet nga siya kasi kay Tita Malu.
Wala siyang sinasabi sa akin, okay? Walang sinasabi sa group chat. Walang tinetext sa akin. Sinasabi lang na sunduin kita. Sunduin ko kayo dito.
Pagalitan mo.
I was in the, by the way, may dalawang nag-order. While paalis na ako, may dalawa kang parcels na dumating. Yung isa binayaran ko ng 20, yung isa bayad na.
Oh, yung isa talaga bayad.
In the middle of shower pa ako nun. Bigla yung text na sunduin ko kayo. Wala silang sinasabi kanina ha, nasusunduin ko sa kayo.
Baka meron, may sinabi si Mami.
Wala. Nung before sila umalis,
Wait
sabi
lang,
lang,
stop muna. Sige.
It does.
Bye.
bye, ingat.
Ingat, tayo yung aalis.
Bakit ba? Mali mo, may lakad sila.
Bye.
Bye. Anyways,
Wait lang. Tawagan natin si Mami, ha?
wala kayong sinasabi. I was eating, nagluluto nga ako ng something para sa dinner, tas, biglang tinext sunduin ko kayo. Ha? Ano naman yun? Tas ngayon si Mami nasa SM. So susundin po ba natin siya o hindi na?
Mamaya na yun, kasama niya si Rita Malu.
Okay, sige.
But basically, is a bit of a background. We kind of talked amongst ourselves. We're like, maybe we're autistic. I don't mean this in like a joking way, but like I think all of us have unique traits that kind of point.
Originally bahay lang. Hindi,
Oo.
originally bahay lang siya.
Yeah.
Pero if you have the
I think
certification,
on that
pwede ka
quiz, if you
magpa-daycare.
scored a
Paspray na ako.
higher,
Walang alcohol.
lean more in
Hello.
that direction.
Na-pick up na ako ni Kuya.
Not so much. Between me, Jack, and
Wala ka daw sinabi,
I scored a 24.
Mami.
Alex was like a 20.
wala ka daw sinabi kay Kuya na na mag-ano ka, mag-SM ka. Wala ka daw sinabi kay
na
Kuya.
mag-SM ka. Tinetext nyo ako at kinakall nyo ako while nasa gitna ako ng traffic sa sa Elias eh.
Siyempre, ganun talaga pinapalo up lang.
Oo nga po, anyway. Pero yung alis ka papuntang SM, bigla lang ba yan? Biglaan din? Oo, okay. Tama naman yan. Anyways, na lang uwi na kami ni Doc. Okay? Uwi na kami ni Doc. Di ka na namin hintayin.
Okay, ayan, di na.
Sige.
Oo, na may chicken dyan. Ulam mo na yan, di na mo na yan.
Chicken?
Ito, meron sa akin.
Sige.
Chicken nuggets.
Okay, sige. Yun na yung...
Pag nagpunta sa doon, may pandesal doon sa sa Beko.
Okay.
Okay.
Sige,
Okay. Mami,
Ay, sus, na-end ko na.
sige. Then, sabihin ko sa kanya, ayoko na magluto ng... Bukas na lang magluluto.
Huwag na tayo magluto. Gusto ko magdalata. Meron pa bang sardines?
Gusto mo na talaga yung sardines.
Meron pa bang sardines?
Marami. Meron pa.
Okay, good.
Kung wala, may 29 pesos lang naman yung 555 sa palit.
Yan yung masarap, ha?
Oo.
Pag hindi masarap,
Hindi yung
gagalit ako.
555, hindi yung Youngtown. Yung Youngtown tabang.
Basta masarap, ha?
Oo
Gagalit
nga.
ako pag di yan masarap.
Oo nga, yung red, yung spicy gusto mo. Spicy ba?
Medyo,
may... Oo naman, masarap naman nga yun.
Huwag ka nga muna tumingin sa phone mo.
Hindi, bigla siyang lumabas eh.
In that direction.
Hindi naman nagsispeed, pero bilis-bilis niya eh.
Answer to, but I have a complete answer. Cool. It's just not simple. So let's start with your first question of what do I think about these quizzes? Well, that depends on the quiz. So some websites, for example, will use validated instruments, right? So these are scientific instruments that are constructed, tested. We do things like factor analysis and stuff like that. We develop these instruments ourselves at DGE because the instruments out there don't capture what we want to capture. But there's a rigorous scientific process to determine whether the questions I ask you literally correlates with what I'm trying to measure. So one of the things that we see a lot is especially in the private sector, you have a lot of people who will develop their own tests, like personality tests or whatever. And all of these tests, the reason they're very successful is because they have a lot of face validity. So they're very similar to astrology in the sense that why do people believe in astrology? It's a more complex answer, but one reason is because when you take the test, it feels right to you, therefore you believe it. So the successfulness, especially of a lot of these privately predetermined tests or like whatever, like websites that people use. The reason that people visit those websites, what they're selecting for is not scientific validity of test. I don't know if y'all have ever done like a scientifically valid test, but it's a fucking pain in the ass. It's like 300 questions. It takes 90 minutes, and they ask you the same damn questions over and over and over again. That's what it takes to get to scientific validity. There are some versions of that that are a little bit better, like we have things like the PhD-9 or the PhD-2, which are screening tools for depression, so we've got some decent stuff that's short form. But generally speaking, stuff is like takes hours to really, if you really want to get a faithful representation of what is going on with someone, our science isn't really that good. So, should we trust these tests? It really depends on the test, but I think a lot of people are building tests that are very accessible, and people like it when they fill it out, which is really what they're designing the test for. That's what they're shooting for, because scientifically valid tests are really boring to take. So I'm skeptical of many of those things. Second thing, but who knows? I mean, maybe someone is doing all the factor analysis and constructing
This
stuff.
was like a 30 question quiz that maybe took.
Are all y'all autistic? Okay, so statistically, let's understand a couple things about autism. Autism is on the rise. Okay, now we don't really know if it's on the rise because we're detecting it more, or it's actually like increasing in the percentage of the population. So are we catching cases? Are we getting better at catching cases, which is certainly true, or is it actually like increasing in the whole? I think both are correct. So if you look at one of the things that correlates with like autism spectrum diagnosis, so like usage of antidepressant, anti-anxiety medications during pregnancy correlates with it. Ultimately a very small effect, but it does have an effect. Maternal and paternal age also correlate with autism. So we're all having kids later, so I think that's like there's some data that suggests that that's possible. But I think the reason that all y'all are testing high, so maybe it's a bad test, who knows, right? And if we sort of think about it, if I'm designing a test that I want to engage people, I'm not going to give them a yes, and I'm not going to give them a no. What I'm going to give them is a maybe that makes them more curious. And then
Yung sa'yo dapat dyan mo ginawa
or anything like this. Sign up for this for a more advanced test.
There wasn't.
Okay. So, unsophisticated website.
His fiance scored very low.
Not
very low, but
Yeah,
definitely on the
Ay.
no.
So
Yeah.
then the other thing to understand, which I think is the key point of the complexity, is I think as a society, we are developing features that Venn diagram between the average person and someone with autism is like overlapping more. And that's primarily through things like technology use. So if we look at some of the features of autism, it's things like
driver mode.
social
Sige, doon ako sa
difficulty
magano
with
ako
empathy, sometimes difficult,
papunta
a lot of rigid thinking, a tendency for things like perseveration, and this is absolutely happening to everyone because of tech. It's fair, right? And I wouldn't say that, but
I think that ADHD is, I'm guessing, on the rise, or maybe it's the same thing with autism, where where we have access to instant gratification, all of these things that basically make it so our expectation or our standards for a certain level of entertainment value are so high now that we need to have this instant gratification in every single facet of life. And I think that could mirror ADHD, whether or not it actually transforms someone into someone with ADHD. I'm not really sure. I don't know if that's like a...
So there's a great guy named Carl Marcy, who was a colleague of mine in Harvard Medical School. He started an empathy lab thing where he ended up getting, his company got acquired by Nielsen. So what he would do is hook people up to EEGs and like cardiovascular stuff and stuff like that. He would measure them in a bazillion different ways and then have them watch ads. And he would tell companies, this ad is the best based on the EEG activity, which is a brilliant idea. So I was talking to Carl about this, and Carl was kind of pointing out to me that
Why?
like, if you watch
Actually, wala nang barya
Mamaya
yung...
na pag-uwi mo.
there's a
Pag-uwi
certain
na lang natin.
length of like what you're engaging with. The story is like maybe 7 minutes long.
Utangan na lang, may utang
So
na lang siya.
now what's going on is that kids, the moment they get bored with something, so when you're bored with Sesame
Natutuwa nga
Street,
ako kasi
you have to sit through it.
after
And over
2
time,
weeks,
even if you watch Sesame Street
finally,
every single
wala
day,
nang barya yung
your
wallet
attention
ko.
span will actually
It took
increase
2 weeks.
because you're sort of forced to pay attention. Whereas now what's going on is
Kasi
people
di ba
have
nung
such
binigyan mo
simple
ko yung
access
100 na
to
barya,
change the thing that
that
they're
took
viewing.
me...
So if you look at it, if you
Yung mga
give a 4-year-old
20-20.
an
Hindi,
iPad,
yung,
over
di ba,
time, what'll
pinalitan
happen
mo
is
ako
they
nun ng,
won't watch
ano,
long-form stuff. They'll
ng,
just switch off of it
ng,
more and more and more and more and more.
na,
Which is why if you look at a
nagpapalit
lot
ka
of
sa
these
akin
things that are very,
100
very
na
Yes.
cash,
common
yung
for
barya.
that kids will watch, it's like compilations
Yung
of
pinalit
super
mo sa akin
short
yung
form
that
stuff.
took me
There'll
so
be an
long
hour
para
of like a kid
maubos.
that's like looking at
Lalo
these
na nung
exciting
mga kaklase
clips
ko sa akin
that's just like
nagpapalit.
completely mentally checked out. So we absolutely have a
Tagal.
society that is
Finally,
shortening
ubos na.
our attention span. We also have a
Ayun lang
society, so
naubos.
another
Wala
key
nang
feature of
barya.
ADHD is
3 piso
emotional
na lang yung natira
dysregulation.
sa wallet
There's
ko.
even some papers now that are suggesting that,
Whoosh.
there's ADD, which is
dadagdag
attention
na
deficit
naman
disorder.
to.
There's ADHD,
Next
which is
week.
attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And they're even proposing a third subtype, which is like ADD with like emotional dysregulation is the primary feature.
Yan o, wala
And so
na, di
our
natumutan
technology is regulating our emotions for
Tatlong
us.
piso lang yan.
Right? Because when I feel bad, what am I going to do? I'm going to look at
Saya.
cat videos.
Gaan na ng wallet
There's
ko.
even a really interesting
Pwede ko
study
nang ilagay sa
that
pantalon ko na hindi ako
suggests that
mahuhubaran.
50% of women who use Tinder are using it to meet
Tanga.
psychological needs completely outside of
Itong
dating.
driver hindi ikaw.
So people are super confused. I mean, it's probably not just women. I don't know why this study.
I saw that video you did on that.
Tanga
Yeah,
ang
so
puta.
really interesting.
It's kind of
Ano yun
interesting,
siya?
right? So because people
Sumobra,
wonder, like,
dapat
why did this
mag-park
person
siya
match with
dun,
me in the
pero
first place? Like, you message
hindi
them and they're like,
napansin.
screw you, you suck, you're ugly, and they
At
unmatch.
diniretso
Like,
niya
why
na
do you
lang.
do that?
Pinilit
It's
niya
because
pang...
they're fulfilling some other kind of
Well,
psychological
parang
need.
ako lang yun.
Anyway,
Pero
so
yun
if you
nga,
look at
upon
what's going on in
reflecting,
society, there's a lot
didiretso
of
na lang
stuff
ako.
that is making our brains more similar to someone with ADHD. Now, that
Ang
may
bait ko
be
no, hindi ako
independent of probably a
Di
my
naman yun
guess is a
road
rise
rage
in
eh.
ADHD as well.
Ano lang yun eh.
Because that also correlates with
Parang
like
okay,
the
sige.
rate of age. So as we're
Teka
having
lang,
kids
hindi
later,
ako
like we're seeing
mabagal.
more of this
Ba't ka
stuff.
tumigil?
That's really interesting.
Wait,
So,
tumagal
what are the
na
implications
eh.
of giving a kid an iPad?
Malapit pa
I
siya
go
sa'yo.
to eat
Hindi,
every
tsaka
now and then. and I just
pag
see these
intersection,
kids.
kailangan mo mag-slow.
Yeah,
Slow
it's
lang,
nothing.
pero hindi
They'll
sinabi
both be
tumigil.
exploding behind them, and they're just fixated on
Rolling lang.
Rolling brake.
Good.
What do y'all think?
I think it's terrible. I think it's rotting away their minds.
gawin mo
and I
ginagawa
think
ng
for
mga
kids to
jeep,
have access
pipit
to,
sila.
to TikTok, I think it's a bad
Dire-diretso
thing.
pa rin, same
For
speed, pero
myself,
pipit-pit
I
lang sila.
constantly delete the app, prevent myself from going on TikTok. Because if I watch one, it's just like 5 minutes goes by so fast. What did I just do?
So that's so interesting. You say constantly, which means you're also constantly reinstalling.
Well,
it.
because I post on TikTok, so it's a bit of a double edge. Because I like to see the analytics of how my videos do.
Slay.
But when I'm on there, I also like to see what's going on from a creator perspective. But I very quickly fall into the consumer.
So this has always been true with parenting, where parents will do things to elicit behaviors of their children. So how do I get my kid to calm down? But now we have this beautiful tool that like edges them out and then they become passive. And it's like, And if you think about it, like kids have been flying internationally all the time and they've never had technology. They've been okay on those flights. Right? But now what's going on is parents are so terrified of a particular behavior. So then what happens is they give the iPad to avoid the behavior. But in doing so, what they're actually doing is reducing the cognitive training that they're putting their kid through. Now, so what used to happen when you were a child and your attention is developing, or even as an adult, is you'd have to force your attention somewhere, right? So I don't know if y'all like went to college, but like you have to force yourself to study. The mind wanders, you force it to pay attention. Wanders, force it to pay attention. During this podcast, force it to pay attention. And so now what's happening is we're not forcing kids to do that anymore. So now what's happening is we have a generation of kids who are no longer taking the stairs to get from floor 1 to floor 3. Everyone's taking the elevator.
Oh,
What it's
okay.
doing is deconditioning our minds.
Automatic brain ko diretso eh.
Relax ka
Our
lang.
minds are
Hindi
becoming
nga, automatic
weaker
lang ng brain
because
ko
we're not
diretso.
pushing
Sus,
them.
alam mo
Kasi
ano
Everyone's
tayo
our
doon.
minds are constantly being driven around
Kasi
in
ano,
mechanized wheelchairs,
sanay ako sa
taking
jeep.
elevators,
Every time
taking
na mag-diretso
escalators, we're not
kami.
using our
Kaya,
minds.
nag-automatic yung brain ko
Restraining
na
them
mag-highway
with
ka.
external devices.
Sus,
That's what's going on. So I
I'm
think
not
giving your
I'm
kid
not
an iPad, just giving it
confident
to
na
them, is a
mag-highway
bad
pa
idea.
tayong dalawa.
How can
Dapat
parents
daddy has to
counteract
be
this?
the
Is it
back.
simply taking away that stimulus from them?
So
Basta
we
doon
do
ka
a
lang sa
ton of
ano.
work with parents.
Hindi mo pa
And
kaya
here's what we've
mag-fast
learned.
lane. Doon ka lang
So
sa
it's my belief that technology is here and here to stay. It's also my belief that when
No, ano,
you
kailangan ko ulit
excessively
mag-highway.
restrict a child, there's a chance
ko ulit
that
matry.
they'll build that habit and things will be
Kasi
okay.
I prefer,
There's
for
also
some
a chance
reason,
that they
I
will
prefer
flip
inside
out when
roads
they
over
get unfettered
highways.
access.
Kasi
Parang
mas
For
comfortable
example,
yung
like
ano
never
sa
partied and
inside.
never had a drink and never or like super
Kasi
like,
kunyari, nung
careful
pupuntang
when in
Philippine
high school.
Arena,
Sometimes
mas
go to
gusto ko yung
college and
inside
they will
road na
just
galing
fuck
SM
out.
Marilao.
So
Kahit
our
malubak
belief is to
yun.
teach
Kasi ano
restraint
yun eh, parang
instead of restriction.
less
This goes
stress.
back to,
I
like,
mean,
yoga
ibang
and
kind
stuff
of
like that,
stress.
right? Like,
Hindi
what
ka
I learned in
nagsispeed.
India
Hindi mo problema
to
yung
control your desire,
kailangan
to
you're at
understand
your
how
own
your mind
pace.
works.
Kapag
Right? So this
nasa
is what
highway
we
ka, you have to
encourage
keep
is
up
it's
with
not about
everyone's
access to screen
pace.
time or not
Pero
access
pag
to
nasa
screen time. It's
inside
what are
road
you
ka, you have your
teaching
own
child
pace.
in relation to the screen. Something that I do with my kids is I'll ask them. They're like,
6:30
first
na,
thing
oh
on
my
Saturday
God.
morning, can we watch something? And I say, sure. I'll ask them, how much do you want to watch? They'll say, a lot. Okay, how much are you having fun? I'll ask them in 30 minutes, are you having fun? Yes. How much fun are you having? So much fun. Do you all want to continue? Yes. Then I'll ask them after 30 minutes. If I try to take it away, they'll rebel. But I ask them, are you still having as much fun? No. Nah. They start to get wiggly. They start to not like it as much. What do y'all think about doing something else? No, we want to keep watching because once the dopamine hits, they want to stay. And I say, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to stop now. I'm going to take y'all to the playground. And then in 30 minutes, I'm going to ask
the Japanese place.
Are you happy you came to the playground?
I have 500.
If the answer is yes,
Wala akong pera.
then I'm going to take you to the playground next time. If the answer is no, I'm
Nah,
going to let
I'm
you
not
watch
hungry
30
din, pero
minutes.
gusto ko lang umikot.
You're in full control. Right?
So
So a lot of
mag-drive
parents
sa
will be like,
Sterling, just see.
you know, irrespective of what the kid says, I'm going to stop it. So and the cool
Yes,
thing is
it
like the
is.
kids will learn. And so now they're like, their technology usage is really good. They don't get to use it as much as they want, but like they recognize that there is a diminishing
Dapat
return
gawin-
on
wala ka ba
technology
dyan
usage,
time
which is
lapse?
such a great thing to instill in a kid.
I mean, minimally fast edit ko pa
Parang
yung
nga
time
mabilis.
lapse.
Because I feel like
Mag-record
school
ka na ng
really
time
teaches you
lapse
you have to be at this
mismo.
place at this time and do these
You know
things.
the reason why
and
I
do exactly
want to
what we tell
keep
you that's
it
great.
low. Kasi
But you go into
nire-record
the
ko
real
din yung
world, you have
sound
no idea what
of
you're supposed to
whatever
do, someone's not telling you
happens
what to do.
in the
Yeah, because I
footage
think
na
that, like we were saying
napag-usapan
earlier, like
natin
school
or I
like
think
creates
it's interesting
factories,
or
right? It's like
na-record
factories for putting out a certain
na
kind of kid. We
may
don't
umikot
teach
na kotse or
children
stuck or
how they
whatever.
work.
Wala na.
Like we don't teach them about their mind. I mean, it's crazy. I'll do like workshops and stuff at like FANG level companies, and I'll do literally the same workshop for like a group of 9-year-olds. Imagine you're being attacked by a bear, and it's trying to bite you, and you kick it. The force with which you would kick that bear is the force with which people with restless leg kick. So the first thing is it really makes things hard for if they're sleeping with anyone else in the bed. The second thing is the force of the kick will literally wake them up. So now if this happens every 15 minutes, it's very hard to sleep. So restless leg syndrome is like I think it's actually like an underappreciated. People don't appreciate how debilitating restless leg syndrome is. It can be quite crippling for a lot of people. What's going on with you? I mean, I have no idea if you have restless leg syndrome or not, but that's not what I'm hearing. What I'm hearing is that you're fidgety.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, so there's a couple things. One is that about 10 to 15% of the calories that we burn throughout the day, or on average, we're going to get to the variability in a second, is from non-exercise something, I forget what it's called, the amount of vata. So this is like an Ayurvedic concept, but you have a lot of wind in your body. So you're kind of fidgety, right? So say like even if you look at your hands, your features are very angular. You're very like conversationally dynamic, right? So like if I have a conversation with him for 3 hours, there's going to be a clear chain from A to B. I've been kind of more running the show than he has, right? So we've been talking about meditation, we're talking about this thing, and oh, by the way, what do you think about this? And if we go for 15 more minutes, your mind will jump to something else. So my guess is that you get bored easily. My guess is that you can dive into something for a long period of time, but then you may like it alone for a little while or move on to something else. So these are all consistent with vata, which means that your mind is like the wind. It can blow really hard in one direction, it'll blow hard in a different direction. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's our job.
He's the rock, you're the kite.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Wow.
Very interesting.
So the cool thing about Ayurveda is that you're able to make these diagnoses because there's physical correlations with mental attributes. So if you look at like the veins on the backs of your hands are going to be more visible than the veins on the backs of his hands. He has a roundness to his face, you have more angularity.
Wait, so what could you tell about that? About like
The other thing to understand about Vatas is that the current society is very pitta favorable. So the way to success, right? So you're talking about like all these people who come on and will say, this is the road. So our whole society is biased towards pittas. So 9 to 5, not 9 to 9, which he can pull off. Not midnight to 6 p.m. twice a month, which is probably what you can do, right? So like Vatas can work very intensely for a short period of time. Kaphas can work long periods of time, but everything is pitta oriented, 9 to 5. Okay, if you look at like income, what correlates with the highest income over time? It's changing jobs every 2 to 3 years. So if you stay in a job for 10 years, because you're like Kapha oriented, you're going to get screwed. If you change jobs every 6 months, which is what you feel like, because it takes you 6 months to get bored, that's going to screw over Vatas. So our society is generally speaking pitta favorable. My energy levels were through the roof, and my productivity is inhuman. right? But it's not inhuman. It's just I know how I work, and I create an environment that suits me. The problem in today's society is we always try to shape the environment. We always try to shape ourselves to the environment. We want to help other people, right? Like, and as you look at other people, we start adapting their traits. Instead, what we really need to do is understand ourselves and then start to shape the environment around us so that we don't have to adapt. Anytime you adapt, you're not operating at 100% because you have a natural inclination, right? You have a biological, like, circadian rhythm that makes you a morning person or a night person. Playing into that and leaning into that is actually how you optimize performance. So let's understand a couple things. I think for you, it's not which one is right. What you've got to understand is there isn't a right. There are lots of rights, okay? And the beautiful thing is your mind is so dynamic that you can integrate those. This is like, I don't know if you've ever played a game where you like swap stances, right? I'm in attack mode, I'm in guard mode, I'm in heal mode. So that's the way you need to think about your life. It's not that there's a philosophy that's correct and a philosophy that's wrong. It's which philosophy do you want to employ in this moment. So you're changeable, you're adaptable.
Yeah, okay,
so stop trying to be one thing because, bro, how many more books do you need to read? How many more successful people? Well, who do you think has the answer? Because you see the merit in all of them and you're trying to bring them all together. Don't try to bring them all together. That's his job. Right? He's going to innovate stuff. You get to swap. Just swap, baby.
Sa gitna ng
That's
road.
that's fascinating.
Negro,
Okay, we need to change the topic so it's not so personalized.
Yeah,
It's more broad
like,
stroke for the
andito
audience.
na siya eh.
But that is-
Magugulong ko na siya eh.
Amazing.
To move
Yeah.
away.
I'd love to talk about relationships.
Nagawa ko pa yun with my right hand, like, whoa.
12 years.
How'd you meet her?
Whoa, umanong pa
Summer
ako.
camp.
And how did you know that she was going to be your wife?
Minsan iniisip ko,
Nag-roll around siya.
a lot of
I
these
didn't.
street dogs
Right away.
and cats, wala
this is-
silang
it's
parang
kind of an
sense of
interesting story. So, like,
danger.
Nasanay na
for
sila
a while,
eh.
we grew up going to
Nung
the same
danger
summer
nila, it's
camp.
like,
So I knew
siguro
who she
kapag,
was, but I didn't really like know
ayan
her.
na
It's
eh.
like,
Alam mo
in
yun.
summer camp, right? Like I was in high school, she was in high school, but I'm 3 years older than her, so she's like a freshman and I'm like a junior. So
Lalo na yung alam mo yun dyan sa
we're both
sa
counselors. And then the funny
tricycle
thing
dyan
is
sa
that
Toda.
this
May
was actually
acid
the
dyan
summer. I
na
just finished my
malaki.
time in India, so
That
I came
reminds
back
me of
and
Peachy.
I was gonna
Si
be a
ano,
mom.
yung white, si
Oh, yung white.
Snowball.
And so I
Snowball
meet
ba
this
yun?
girl who I
Basta
find
yung white na,
very
ano, may
attractive, right?
dede
But, like,
na,
I've
may
decided-
Oh,
mountain.
basta yun yung white na
Oh,
malaki.
Oh, yung dyan sa may
Yung
Toda.
malapad
Oo,
dyan sa may
yung
Toda.
malapad, exactly, mahaba.
Sa umaga, pag naghihintay ako dyan, nakahiga siya sa may puno.
Oh.
Ang daming mga tricycle na pag nagbababa sila, mag-swoop lang silang ganon. There was this one time na nakahiga siyang ganyan, no care in the road, nakahilat, nakaspread out yung legs and tail niya. Tapos yung tricycle, ganito lang kalapit yung layo, yung gulong from the tail. Isip ko, so wala ba talaga pakitong mga asa na to?
It's both na walang pakiaso and nag-adjust yung drivers
I
dun
met
sa
this
aso.
girl, and since
Pero nung
dating was out of the
pinapanood
question,
ko, sabi
I
ko,
could
it
actually
was
talk
so
to her.
close. Like, konti na lang talaga magugulungan niya na yung aso.
Nothing to gain, nothing to lose. So I'm just
Kaya
like, hey, you wanna like, you know, you're
Kung
she's
mga
coming to, we're
pagka
going to the
talaga
same
sa
college,
labas
so
eh,
she's gonna be a freshman.
parang walang sense
I'm a
of
junior. I was
danger.
like, I'll show you around, right? So like, I'll take you out. You know, like you're moving there for the first time, so like, you know, I'll show you where the cool stuff is. You like, you're interested in that? She said yes. So she insists that I asked her out on a date. I was not asking her out on a date. I didn't think about it as a date. I thought about it as like, I'm 21, she's 18, she's new.
Pitpitan mo
I know
kung
something
gano'n.
about this place. Like, let me just do a nice thing.
Pitpitan mo yung ganun kasi
So
nasa
she
gitna
insists that
sila
we
ng
were
daan.
dating when I didn't think we were dating. I was just, you know, so, but then we started dating,
Like,
and then
pit, ganun lang, hindi pit-pit.
yeah, I mean,
Yung
so
ano
that's
lang,
how long
parang
that's
get
how we
out
met.
of the way
And
pit.
then eventually,
Yeah, that's
you know,
something I have to
decided
learn
this wasn't gonna
talaga.
work out.
Hindi pa ako ganun ka-ano eh. Maybe
then,
pag nasa
you know,
highway
got
na
myself
talaga,
a
doon ko matututunan yun.
Then that was
Magiging
Hindi highway, hindi mo natutunan yung sa highway, dire-diretso ka
I
lang.
mean, pag nasa
Yung
Manila
sa mga
na
ganun,
ako.
sa Manila yun.
Is
Yeah,
not about having
I
sex or not having sex.
Actually nga, parang Manila na,
It's
Manila
about
na
the
rin to kasi ang
attachment
daming
to
mga
lust.
ano
Or
dumadaan.
the
Diba?
freedom from lust that
Ay,
makes you
yeah,
This
you
is
know.
why
Kuya, kung
we
Manila
love
to, mas
stories
masigit
about
yung
monks
daan.
and priests.
Isa lang yung
Probably.
kasya.
By the way, it's like
Probably.
all the religions, right? All these
I
people have
guess.
enforced celibacy.
Tsaka mas
Don't have
gago
the
yung nasa
spiritual
daan.
training.
Yung mga ganyan, normal lang
Are the
yan.
ones that get into problems, and then they start. Usually, it's men putting their dicks where they don't belong.
Magsahin na rin
what I
ako
sort of
so if
realized
you're
is that,
hungry.
like, you know, it's about conquering lust, not about
Snack lang kami
being
kanina
self.
sa McDo.
So what was the point
Kasi
you
gusto nila
realized
din ng
you
McDo.
didn't
And
want to be
inuwi niyo
alone
ako ng chicken
Ito,
nuggets.
chicken nuggets,
in that
oo.
Yung
relationship?
ilang pieces
Did you
yun?
tell her initially, like,
Okay,
hey, I'm
good.
gonna be alone?
99 pala yun.
I think I told her, but she thought we were dating, and I think she also
Solo
knew
lang,
me
wala
quite
tong, like,
well,
fries
and she
or whatever.
Also, I don't know. that she
99
ever-
yung nugget,
So she's
6
Oh,
also
nugget
mentioned
itself
ago
lang.
that,
If
you know,
my
magkano
drink
pag may fries?
and
Ano na, pag
fries,
magkano
parang
pag may fries?
150.
or you're gonna end up as
Wag
like
na.
something
What
like
about
what I am
ano
now.
kapag
So she
kumari,
saw a long
may
time
fries
ago that,
lang,
like,
walang drinks.
if I
Hindi ko
thought
alam.
differently,
120 siguro.
you know, I thought about it. Like, I
Additional,
ultimately decided,
additional.
even now actively try to
Sige nga, no, dito dadan kasi hugasan ko tong side na to.
Both handles,
So I think she
hugasan mo.
kind of
Buhusan mo lang
understood our
tapos.
relationship, I think, better than I did
Okay
for a
na
long
yan.
time. And then eventually I kind of
May
gave up.
nakita akong driving
I sort of
technique
realized,
na
like,
mali
okay,
daw
like, I don't have to
yung
give up being a monk to, like,
I mean,
this
dapat
relationship.
yung 10
So
to.
being a
Okay,
monk
got it.
is more
Pero mali
about
daw
the
yung
identity,
ganito.
the values, the belief, the intent,
Pinapalm.
Pagka ano ka, pagka beginner ka, eh kung experience ka na naman, gamay mo na yung kotse mo, okay na yun.
Or, kasi tama naman, hindi
Kuya,
nila i-specify yun na for beginners or for
Kuya,
advanced. They just say, don't do this.
Kuya, para kanino yung mga videos na ganun?
For beginners.
Exactly. They don't need to specify. Kasi alam, kasi for beginners lang yun. No, that thing that people don't know. Pero,
Means ka
kuya,
nga kapag beginner, ibig sabihin, hindi mo matututunan yun. There's a difference between implicitly sasabihin mo versus implied na hindi na. Eh yung ganon,
kuya, yung
hindi
sa
rin
mga ganun
implied eh.
kasi. Hindi, implied yun. Yes, you're not supposed to do that. Eh kunyari ganyan, you've been driving for 10 years. Susunod ka pa ba doon?
Maybe you're driving the wrong way.
Gamay mo na yung quote, kuya. Imagine mo kunyari.
So if you think about dating apps,
Let's use Kuya Joel. Kilala mo si Kuya Joel, di ba? Yung service ko nung LM.
you are a certain kind
Yung
of
isang
person.
kamay niya
Your
paralyzed.
social circle.
Nagda-drive
Yeah.
siya, meron lang siya yung
Siyempre yung ganon, that's an
ganon.
exempt. That's
Pero
an
pag
exempt.
tinatanggal,
Perfect person somewhere.
not my point. That's exact siya, yes. Pero natutunan niya yun even beforehand. Kaya yung ganyan, yung pinapal mo lang,
Yeah.
okay lang matutunan mo yun. For beginner, syempre, kailangan gamay mo pa yung kotse.
Napaisip nga ako,
Ganon
parang
mo pa.
napaisip
Eh, kung-
nga ako dun sa video. Kasi the reason why I like the palming, kasi di ba kapag umiikot ako, nagka-turn, it reminds me how many turns na nakuha
So now
ko.
what's happening is that
Ganito yung prefer nila, it's yung ganito. Ang
Kasi-
hirap nga ng ganito, parang
Kuya,
manual
hindi.
yun eh.
Hindi.
Alam mo sa ship, yung nagka-turn ka ng malaking
I
manipulator.
guess depende din sa
instead of
kotse
making
kasi
the process easier,
power
so
steering
you'd have to
to.
go through 40
Yeah.
people before you find
So,
one
bumabalik
in
siya
your
ng
normal
kusa.
Mm.
Eh kung sa manual, hindi bumabalik ng kusa yun. OP, hindi bumabalik ng kusa ang manual. Nung nag-drive ako ng manual, o tignan mo, tatakbo.
But the big dating app said, we're gonna make
Nahuli,
it easier.
nahuli!
Obs.
The other
Nahuli!
problem is that a lot of dating apps,
Wanna get him?
the information that they collect is something
Okay
a
na
lot
yun,
of
okay
people
na yun,
understand.
okay na.
The
Yeah.
information that they
kung
collect does not correlate
yung sa ganon,
necessarily with relationship success.
Kasi matigas ang manual,
So this is
may
another good
balik.
example.
Yeah,
So,
syempre.
if you look
Kaya,
at like, let's
kaya
say,
kailangan i-ganon.
so
Pero I guess depende din. Kasi yung service ni Kuya Joel dati, manual yun eh. Pero napapalm niya eh.
Ano na din yun, may dexterity and strength na part of the
Tubig.
Yeah,
Pero basta yung sa ganun, yung mga don't do videos, applied to beginners yun.
Yeah.